Did you know that over 300,000 people in the UK are currently homeless, with thousands sleeping rough on the streets each night? That's not just a number. That's nearly the population of a city like Nottingham. Shocking, isn't it? But here's the most disturbing part. The situation is only getting worse. From bustling capitals to quiet seaside towns, homelessness in the UK has hit unprecedented levels in 2025. Entire families are being forced into temporary shelters, and some cities have seen their homeless populations double in just a few years. The question is, why? What's driving this crisis? Imagine walking through the heart of your city. On one side, there are glitzy skyscrapers and luxury apartments. But just a few steps away, people are setting up tents as makeshift homes. This stark contrast isn't just heartbreaking, it's alarming. In this video, we're diving deep into the 10 UK cities where homelessness has reached extreme levels. From the chaotic streets of London to the hidden struggles in smaller towns, we'll uncover what's happening, why it's happening, and how it's affecting lives in ways you might not even imagine. Stay with us to discover the shocking realities, the untold stories, and perhaps even some hope. Because by the end of this video, you'll see homelessness in a whole new light and understand why it's an issue none of us can afford to ignore. Number 10. Leeds. Leeds, often celebrated for its vibrant culture and thriving economy, hides a troubling reality. A growing homelessness crisis that has pushed the city into the top 10 most affected in the UK. Despite its reputation as a hub for innovation and opportunity, homelessness in Leeds has surged by nearly 20% in the past 2 years, making it a stark example of the hidden struggles many UK cities are facing. One of the most pressing issues in Leeds is hidden homelessness, people who aren't on the streets but are still without a stable home. They're crammed into overcrowded housing, sofa surfing at friends' homes, or stuck in temporary shelters. Shockingly, it's estimated that for every person sleeping rough in Leeds, there are 10 more living in these precarious conditions. So what's driving this crisis? For starters, the city's rapid urban growth has led to rising rents, pricing many out of their homes. Coupled with a shortage of affordable housing, low-income families are left with few options. Add to that, government cuts to social housing funding, and it's a recipe for disaster. The streets of Leeds tell their own story. From makeshift shelters in the city centre to families queuing at food banks, the impact is visible and heartbreaking. Local charities are stepping up, offering hot meals and temporary shelter, but they're overwhelmed. Leeds may be a city of opportunities for some, but for its homeless population, it's a daily battle for survival. Yet there's hope. Grassroots organisations and community efforts are making strides, but the question remains, will it be enough to turn the tide? Stay tuned as we explore the other cities facing similar, if not worse, challenges across the UK. Number 9. Edinburgh. Edinburgh, Scotland's stunning capital, known for its historic charm and thriving tourism, harbours a grim reality beneath its picturesque facade. The city has become one of the UK's hotspots for homelessness, earning its place at number 9 on our list. In 2025, homelessness in Edinburgh has reached record highs, with rough sleeping and overcrowded temporary accommodations becoming all too common. What's driving this crisis in a city renowned for its beauty and culture? A significant factor is skyrocketing housing costs. As a global tourist destination, demand for short-term rentals has surged, leaving fewer affordable housing options for local residents. Combined with stagnant wages and rising living expenses, many families find themselves unable to keep up with their rent. Another unique challenge in Edinburgh is the tourism paradox. While tourism pumps billions into the local economy, it also contributes to housing scarcity. Properties are increasingly being converted into holiday lets, displacing long-term tenants. In fact, it's estimated that nearly 1 in 5 city centre homes is now a short-term rental. For those experiencing homelessness, the situation is bleak. Shelter spaces are limited, and even those fortunate enough to find temporary housing face long waits for permanent solutions. Rough sleepers are often seen in the city's iconic streets, from the bustling Royal Mile to quieter residential areas. A stark contrast to the wealth generated by Edinburgh's festivals and attractions. However, there's a glimmer of hope. Local charities and initiatives like Streetwork Edinburgh are working tirelessly to provide support, but they can't tackle the problem alone. Without systemic changes, Edinburgh risks further alienating its most vulnerable residents. Number 8. Liverpool. Liverpool, a city with a rich history and deep sense of community, has found itself grappling with a homelessness crisis that is impossible to ignore. In recent years, the city has witnessed a sharp rise in homelessness, with rough sleeping increasing by nearly 30% compared to pre-pandemic levels. This once thriving port city, known for its resilience, is now facing a stark reality. More and more of its residents are without a place to call home. One of the key drivers behind Liverpool's homelessness problem is economic disparity. While the city has seen significant regeneration efforts, including high-profile projects like the waterfront redevelopment, these changes have often left behind the most vulnerable. Job opportunities have not kept pace with the rising cost of living, and many families are struggling to make ends meet. Another pressing issue is the lack of affordable housing. As Liverpool attracts new investments and developments, the demand for housing has increased, but the supply of affordable options has failed to meet the need. This has forced many residents into temporary accommodations or overcrowded living situations, with little hope of finding permanent solutions. For those on the streets, life in Liverpool is especially tough. The city's harsh winters and limited shelter availability leave many exposed to extreme conditions. Homeless outreach programs, such as those run by local charities, are doing their best to provide support through food banks, temporary housing, and mental health services. While there have been some innovative attempts to address the issue, including community-led housing initiatives, Liverpool's homelessness crisis remains a significant challenge. For many, the fight for stability and security continues every single day. Number 7. Sheffield. Sheffield, the city of steel, is renowned for its industrial legacy and close-knit community. But beneath its proud history lies a growing issue that's hard to ignore: homelessness. In 2025, Sheffield has become one of the UK's most affected cities, with homelessness rising by over 25% in the last 3 years. From rough sleepers to families stuck in temporary accommodations, the crisis is hitting every corner of the city. One of the root causes of Sheffield's homelessness problem is the erosion of social services. Budget cuts to housing support and welfare programs have left vulnerable populations without a safety net. Many individuals who once relied on these services now find themselves struggling to secure even the most basic necessities. The housing crisis in Sheffield is another critical factor. While the city has made efforts to modernise and grow, the demand for affordable housing has far outstripped supply. Rising rents and stagnant wages have pushed many residents to the brink, with eviction rates climbing steadily. For low-income families, the prospect of losing their home is an all-too-real fear. Walking through Sheffield's streets, the impact of homelessness is visible. From abandoned industrial areas turned into makeshift shelters to queues outside food banks, the human cost of this crisis is heartbreaking. And it's not just individuals. Entire families, including children, are bearing the brunt of this growing issue. Local charities and grassroots organisations are working tirelessly to combat homelessness in Sheffield, providing temporary housing, meals, and support services. Yet despite their best efforts, the scale of the problem continues to grow, leaving many to wonder if systemic change is the only solution. Sheffield's story is a sobering reminder of how quickly the fabric of a community can be stretched to its limits. Number 6. Bristol. Bristol, often praised for its vibrant arts scene and progressive culture, is facing a homelessness crisis that starkly contrasts with its image as a thriving and inclusive city. In recent years, homelessness in Bristol has risen by over 30%, with rough sleeping now a familiar sight on its busy streets. Despite its booming economy, the city's growing inequalities have pushed many residents into precarious living conditions. One of the primary culprits behind Bristol's homelessness issue is rapid gentrification. As the city attracts new investments and high-income residents, housing prices have skyrocketed, leaving many locals unable to keep up. Once affordable neighbourhoods like St Paul's and Easton have seen rents soar, forcing lower-income families to the margins or into temporary shelters. Adding to the crisis is Bristol's chronic shortage of affordable housing. The city's efforts to build new developments have focused largely on luxury apartments rather than homes that cater to its working-class population. As a result, many residents are finding themselves priced out with nowhere else to turn. On the streets of Bristol, the human toll is deeply visible. Makeshift tents line parks and underpasses, while food banks and community kitchens are seeing record demand. For homeless individuals, accessing basic necessities like healthcare and support services has become increasingly difficult, exacerbating their struggles. Local organisations, such as Caring in Bristol, have stepped in to provide emergency shelters, food, and advocacy for the homeless. However, with limited resources, their ability to make a lasting impact is constrained. Bristol's story reflects a wider problem seen across the UK, one where rapid growth and prosperity leave the most vulnerable behind. As the city continues to evolve, the question remains: will it be able to balance progress with compassion? We put countless hours into researching and creating videos like this to bring you valuable insights. If you found this video eye-opening, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click but means the world to us. And tell us in the comments, which city's story surprised you the most? And what solutions do you think could help tackle homelessness? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Number 5. Glasgow. Glasgow, Scotland's largest city, is celebrated for its rich culture, vibrant arts, and warm hospitality. Yet beneath its dynamic exterior, Glasgow is grappling with a deepening homelessness crisis. Over the past 5 years, the city has experienced a 40% increase in homelessness, pushing it to the forefront of Scotland's housing emergency. One of the key drivers of this crisis is economic inequality. Despite being a major hub for commerce and industry, Glasgow has some of the highest poverty rates in the UK. Many low-income families are struggling to make ends meet, with rising living costs and stagnant wages forcing them into unstable housing situations. Adding to the challenge is the city's underfunded housing system. While Glasgow has made efforts to address homelessness through temporary accommodations, the demand far exceeds the supply. Families often face long waiting lists for social housing, leaving many stuck in overcrowded or unsuitable living conditions. Glasgow's streets tell a sobering story. In areas like George Square and the Gallowgate, rough sleepers have become an increasingly common sight. The harsh Scottish winters make life on the streets even more perilous, with temperatures often dropping below freezing. Despite these challenges, Glasgow's community spirit shines through. Charities like Glasgow City Mission and Simon Community Scotland are working tirelessly to provide shelter, food, and support to those in need. Additionally, the Scottish Government's commitment to eradicating homelessness by 2032 has brought some hope, though significant obstacles remain. Glasgow's homelessness crisis is a stark reminder that even cities with strong cultural and economic foundations are not immune to the effects of inequality and systemic failures. The city's fight to protect its most vulnerable residents continues, with much work still to be done. Number 4. Brighton. Brighton, often referred to as the UK's seaside gem, is a city of contrasts. Known for its stunning coastline, vibrant art scene, and progressive reputation, it also faces a severe homelessness crisis that stands in stark contrast to its picturesque image. In 2025, Brighton ranks as one of the UK's worst hit cities, with homelessness rising by over 35% in the past 5 years. One of the biggest challenges Brighton faces is its sky-high property prices. As a popular destination for both tourists and those seeking a laid-back coastal lifestyle, demand for housing has surged. However, this has driven up rents and property prices, making it nearly impossible for many locals to afford a stable home. The city's large student population and influx of second home buyers exacerbate the issue, leaving fewer affordable housing options for its working-class residents. As a result, many individuals and families are being pushed into temporary accommodations or left to sleep rough on the streets. Brighton's visible homelessness problem is most apparent in areas like the lanes and the seafront. Makeshift shelters, rough sleepers, and overcrowded hostels have become a common sight, reflecting the city's struggle to manage this growing crisis. Local charities, such as Brighton Housing Trust and Off the Fence, are making remarkable efforts to support those in need, providing food, clothing, and emergency housing. Despite their dedication, the scale of the issue continues to grow, leaving many vulnerable individuals without the help they desperately need. Brighton's story serves as a sobering reminder of how even idyllic coastal cities are not immune to the housing crisis. For those living on the edge, the city's beauty is overshadowed by the harsh realities of day-to-day survival. Number 3. Manchester. Manchester, a city synonymous with innovation, music, and industrial heritage, has become a focal point of homelessness in the UK. Despite its economic growth and urban renewal projects, Manchester's homelessness rates have soared by over 40% in the last decade, making it one of the most affected cities in the country. One of the major reasons behind Manchester's homelessness crisis is the city's housing affordability gap. With property prices and rents climbing rapidly, low-income residents are increasingly unable to keep up. Many find themselves evicted or priced out of their homes, with limited options for affordable housing to turn to. Compounding the problem is Manchester's growing inequality. While the city centre boasts luxury developments and high-end amenities, a significant portion of the population struggles with poverty, unemployment, and lack of access to social services. For some, losing their home becomes an unavoidable consequence of these challenges. The streets of Manchester reveal the human cost of this crisis. From Piccadilly Gardens to Deansgate, rough sleepers and makeshift shelters are becoming an all too common sight. The city's harsh winters add to the hardship, with freezing temperatures posing a serious risk to those living on the streets. Local organisations like Barnabas Manchester and Coffee for Craig are working tirelessly to provide meals, clothing, and temporary accommodations, while also advocating for systemic change. The Greater Manchester Combined Authority has also launched initiatives aimed at reducing rough sleeping, but the scale of the problem remains daunting. Manchester, a city built on resilience and progress, now faces the challenge of addressing a crisis that threatens its most vulnerable residents. The solutions may be complex, but for many, the need for action is urgent and life-saving. Number 2. Birmingham. Birmingham, the UK's second largest city, is facing one of the most severe homelessness crises outside of London. With rising living costs, a shortage of affordable housing, and council budget cuts, thousands of people are struggling to find a place to call home. In 2025, Birmingham ranks among the top cities for homeless individuals and families, with over 5,000 people estimated to be living in temporary accommodation or on the streets. One of the biggest contributors to Birmingham's homelessness crisis is the lack of affordable housing. Over the years, rising rent prices and a shortage of social housing have forced many low-income families into precarious living situations. Private landlords continue to raise rents, making it difficult for tenants to keep up with payments. This has led to a surge in evictions, pushing more people into temporary shelters or even onto the streets. Council housing waiting lists have also reached a breaking point, with families waiting years to be placed in suitable accommodation. In many cases, families are placed in hostels or bed and breakfast accommodations, which are only meant to be short-term solutions. The impact of budget cuts. In recent years, Birmingham City Council has struggled with financial difficulties, leading to budget cuts for services that help the homeless. Funding for emergency shelters, outreach programs, and addiction services has been reduced, leaving many vulnerable people without the help they desperately need. Local charities and food banks have tried to fill the gap, but demand has far outgrown supply. Many shelters report that they are at full capacity every night, leaving many people with nowhere to go. Without urgent action, Birmingham's homelessness crisis is only expected to worsen. Experts warn that unless more affordable housing is built and government funding is restored, thousands more could be forced into homelessness in the coming years. What do you think is the main reason behind Birmingham's housing crisis? Let us know in the comments below. Number 1. London. London, the UK's bustling capital and one of the world's most iconic cities, finds itself at the very top of this list for a heartbreaking reason. It is the epicenter of homelessness in the UK. In 2025, the city has reached record-breaking levels of homelessness, with over 8,000 people sleeping rough each night and tens of thousands more trapped in temporary accommodations. The sheer scale of London's homelessness crisis stems from its astronomical cost of living. London's housing market is among the most expensive globally, with rents and property prices that are far out of reach for most average income earners. Even professionals with stable jobs often find themselves struggling to make ends meet, let alone those on lower incomes or benefits. The problem is exacerbated by a lack of affordable housing. Despite various development projects, the focus has largely been on luxury apartments and commercial spaces, leaving a glaring gap in housing options for low-income families. Add to that welfare cuts and the city's economic inequalities, and the result is a perfect storm that has left thousands on the streets. In areas like Westminster, Camden, and Suffolk, rough sleeping is a common sight. Tent encampments line parks and underpasses, while makeshift shelters occupy sidewalks. For those experiencing homelessness, accessing food, healthcare, and shelter in such a vast and crowded city is a daily battle. Local charities, such as Crisis and Shelter, are tirelessly working to support the homeless, offering emergency housing, job training, and advocacy. London's City Council has also implemented initiatives to reduce rough sleeping, but the sheer scale of the problem requires a far more comprehensive approach. London's homelessness crisis is a stark reminder that even the wealthiest cities can fail their most vulnerable residents. The fight for solutions continues in the heart of the nation. Homelessness is a crisis that touches every corner of society, yet it's often met with indifference or misconceptions. It's important to remember that behind every statistic is a human story, someone's parent, sibling, or friend who has fallen on hard times. No one chooses to be homeless, and many of those affected are victims of circumstances beyond their control, like job loss, illness, or lack of affordable housing. Despite the overwhelming numbers, there's still hope. Across the UK, countless charities, grassroots organisations, and compassionate individuals are working tirelessly to support those in need. From emergency shelters and hot meals to long-term housing solutions and job training, these efforts are changing lives every day. What's equally encouraging is the growing public awareness of homelessness as a societal issue. Communities are coming together to advocate for systemic changes, pushing for policies that address the root causes of homelessness rather than just the symptoms. While the road ahead is long, the spirit of collective action reminds us that change is possible. Each small step, from volunteering to simply showing kindness, contributes to a larger movement toward a society where everyone has a place to call home. Solution. Addressing homelessness requires a multifaceted approach that tackles its root causes while providing immediate support to those in need. Solutions must involve both government intervention and community-driven efforts to make a lasting impact. Increase affordable housing. A lack of affordable housing is a major contributor to homelessness. governments must prioritise building and funding social housing projects, ensuring that low-income families and individuals have access to safe and stable homes. Incentives for landlords to offer affordable rents can also make a difference. Expand support services. Many people experiencing homelessness face additional challenges, such as mental health issues or addiction. Expanding access to healthcare, counselling, and rehabilitation programs can help address these barriers and provide a path to stability. Strengthen welfare systems. Welfare cuts have left vulnerable populations without a safety net. Restoring and enhancing financial support for low-income families can prevent evictions and reduce the risk of homelessness. Community engagement. Grassroots organisations and volunteers play a crucial role in providing immediate relief, such as food, clothing, and temporary shelter. Supporting these initiatives through funding and resources can amplify their impact. Prevention and education. Educating the public about the causes of homelessness can reduce stigma, while prevention programs can identify at-risk individuals and provide early interventions to keep them housed. Homelessness is not an unsolvable issue. With coordinated efforts between governments, charities, and communities, we can create a society where everyone has the opportunity for a stable and secure life. Solving this crisis is not just an act of compassion, it's a moral and social responsibility. Homelessness is a crisis we can't ignore, and your voice matters. Tell us in the comments, what solutions do you think could make a real difference? If this video resonated with you, check out our previous video on innovative solutions to homelessness. It's packed with hope and ideas. We pour hours into creating content like this, so please support us by subscribing. It's just one click, but it means everything to us. Thank you for watching.